those players, of course, both very well known, very well respected players. We'll start by taking a look at Flavio, who's been absolutely crushing it in the European Cup. Let's be honest, that 5-0 record, a fantastic achievement. But he's got a few others under his belt. He won the European International Championships last year. He came top 8 at NAIC last year as well, and was the regional champion in 2018. So a really good year from last year. I thought his play in that Berlin Championship was fantastic. I was so lucky to be there. And he's just kind of kept going from there. I mean, turning that into top 8 in Columbus is just a great year. And he shows that, yes, he is going to be a dominant force as part of Italy as well, which is, as a region, has been largely dominant for some time. So Flavio is certainly who you want to try and force your team kind of into that lead finally. Italy have been chasing a little bit, catching up from one down to, over and over again. And Flavio is somebody, yeah, you could probably say, yeah, he's going to get us back in this one.
Well, the person going to be trying to take down Flavio is going to be Addy, and we're going to be looking at his player profile now. He was able to win the Rose Tower Challenge, and so a great achievement there, as well as the top 8 in the Madison Regionals back in 2018. And he was also able to just get top 6 in the Players' Cup qualifier in the North American region as well. So just being that one win away from being able to advance into the finals. And not the greatest of records compared to Flavio's in this tournament with that 2-3. Going to be looking to level that up at the end of his run, and we'll see if he is able to do it here against Flavio.
Yeah, this is the match that really matters. Whatever your record has been so far, doesn't matter. Your team's made it to the finals, and you really want to be able to start recording those wins. So we'll be diving in and looking at the game. That's what you guys are here for.
Definitely an interesting one. We don't see Driftblim too often in this format, but yeah, being able to pair with that Indeedee very well, being able to get that Psychic Seed to get the Unburden as well. I'm going to be interested to see if Flavio is going to be bringing that Porygon Z once again to this match, and it looks like it is in his team in this finals as well.
Bit of setup, and then they're able to just go absolutely crazy. The Colossal, that Venusaur, along with the Porygon Z you mentioned at the top of the show, a little more in the defensive and kind of supportive options though, with the Clefairy and Whimsicott, and rounded out very nicely by that Urshifu that a lot of people have been enjoying, like playing with and experimenting as Season 5 kicks off.
It's very interesting seeing a Colossal come out with no potential Surf users on Flavio's side of the field. He does have that Urshifu, and if it is that Rapid Strike variety that you would strongly assume paired next to a Colossal, it would still be able to Aqua Jet itself. But very interesting not bringing any Surfs to be able to activate that Steam Engine and the Weakness Policy that we see so often on the Colossals, because Aqua Jet can be redirected by Follow Me's and by Rage Powders as well, so you don't have the reliability of the Surf as well. And we'll have to see if the Colossal is the mode that Flavio wants to go for, because you are going to be facing down that Driftblim that's going to be very, very fast and be able to set the Tailwind and make all of its teammates faster as well, maybe even faster than the Colossal, even if it gets that Steam Engine boost.
I think that's a really cool point. I have been interested over the course of this series to see, I mean, just in general, the way that people have been team building, what crazy depths people will go to activate the Steam Engine Weakness Policy boost. So it's been fun to see. As we mentioned, though, looking at it from Addy's side of the field, he's leading off Indeedee and Driftblim. He's going to be facing down Flavio's Whimsicott and Porygon Z. So no Steam Engine to start the game. Doesn't mean it's not there, but certainly, you mentioned speed. There's options to help out with that here.
And speaking of speed, that Unburden is going to be activated on that Driftblim as well. So definitely going to be putting it as the fastest Pokemon on the field. But its Tailwind won't out-prioritize that Whimsicott that will get before the Drifblim does. And then it depends on how fast the Porygon Z would be trained, if that would be able to get an attack off before the Drifblim. You would assume that the Drifblim would also want to be going for a Tailwind to be able to match the Tailwind that could come out from the Whimsicott as well, and that would put the Indeedee most likely faster than the Porygon Z as well. But then you have to deal with those max strikes that could come out from the Porygon Z and reduce the speeds down of the Indeedee and the Drifblim as well. And we'll have to see if the Tailwinds are going to be matched here. Both of the Indeedee and the Porygon Z also do have access to Trick Room, so if they are fearing a Tailwind coming out from their respective Tailwind setters, they could be going for a cheeky Trick Room as well.
Yeah, Trick Room with Pokemon that don't usually want it is odd. We're definitely not going to see that from Flavio's side of the field, right? He's already decided to Dynamax his Porygon Z, and I think that's wise. The Max Strike is probably the more established way around this kind of problem that you may be facing down. Whimsicott starting it out with the Tailwind, no shocks there. If it's turn 1 and Whimsicott's on the field, Tailwinds are coming out.
Oh no!
Firing back with a Hypnosis, taking advantage of that unburdened speed boost. Still moving for the Porygon Z, pops it right to sleep. Nothing coming out in retaliation that turn. And you called it, Indeedee decides to Trick Room. So he's taken advantage of his unburden this turn, realizes the Tailwind's going to come out anyway, and then punished him with the Trick Room. That's a really, really good turn for Addy there.
I don't think you could have asked for a better turn for Addy. Getting the Trick Room against the opposing Tailwind, it doesn't really matter about that unburden anymore. The Porygon Z did underspeed the Drifblim even in that Tailwind, so it would still be moving first before the Drifblim if it decides to wake up this turn, but the Indeedee would be able to fire off a big expanding force into the Whimsicott and the Porygon Z as well. And then the Tailwind is still going to be on the field for Flavio's side of the field for the 3 turns. So this Dracovish that's coming in as well will still be underspeeding all of its Pokemon and will be able to get the double power on that Fishious Rend.
Well, Dracovish comes in for the Drifblim, which is a nice change. You do lose the Unburden and Seed Boost, but it's probably worth it in the long run. Clefairy comes in place of that Whimsicott, and Expanding Force is fired off, hitting both because of the boost in the terrain. And Porygon Z stays asleep, so a pretty solid turn there. I think if you're Addy, you get some good damage down and you don't receive anything problematic in return. You just get damage down, you get to reposition your board. Flavio is definitely going to have to start hoping Porygon Z wakes up, and there's only so much time Clefairy can buy it.
And that's 2 turns of the Dynamax used up on Porygon Z as well, and it's really a Pokemon that wants to be making use of those Dynamax turns, because you want to be getting those max strikes off while you don't have to take a recharge turn, as you so commonly see Hyper Beam as the move of choice on the Porygon Z. When you click that, you have to take a recharge turn, but you don't have to when you're in your Dynamax form. But that's 2 of the Dynamax turns already gone for the Porygon Z. And then even if it's able to fire off one of those max strikes, it's going to be reducing the speeds in the Trick Room.
Well, Clefairy's Sing does move first. Obviously, Clefairy not the quickest Pokemon, and Sing will land on Indeedee, so no more Expanding Forces on this turn. But there's no redirection, and that means this Fishious Rend lands clean into the Porygon Z. And you mentioned not getting anything out of your Dynamax turns. You're not even given a chance at the third one with the huge damage from that Fishious Rend. Indeedee taking its first turn of sleep from that Sing. But overall, I mean, you probably wanted to try and stop the Dracovish, right? And there was no way to do that. So Addy gets the first knockout of the game. It's on a really big kind of carry threat in that Porygon Z, and it's been handled with a combination Hypnosis and Fishious Rend. It's worked really well for him, and this Urshifu, a lot riding on him, I think, to start dealing the requisite damage that it needs to do.
It's interesting seeing the Rapid Strike style come out from the Urshifu as well. And that means it is going to be weak to the Expanding Force that could come out from the Indeedee if it is able to wake up once again. But will be resisting the Fishious Rends at least, and this Clefairy still could be redirecting those Fishious Rends, not getting the double-powered boost after the Follow Me redirects it as well. But still quite a nice position for Addy, as he's able to completely waste the Dynamax on the Porygon Z, and he still has his available to him.
Yep, well, Dracovish is leaving for now. Dracovish is going to take some time out and actually switch out for Drifblim. The Sing lands, so that's 2 for 2 on the Sings. Really good for Flavio there. Definitely what he needs to try and kind of carve open some time for him to play the game again, and kind of giving Addy a taste of his own medicine. Urshifu, as you mentioned, is the Rapid Strike variety, and Surging Strikes coming through, landing on the Indeedee. There's 1, there's 2, and there's 3. To confirm the knockout. So there's 3 big hits from Surging Strikes, able to level up the Pokemon count there, and Indeedee's going to be leaving. The Tailwinds left the field, but that does mean there's a little bit more Trick Room coming through. And now Addy given the opportunity to kind of reposition a little bit, you know, particularly something that's not asleep right now. So certainly an interesting one. We'll have to be cautious of the Sing for a little bit longer. That's still going to be a threat.
But then Flavio has to be cautious of that Hypnosis as well if the Drifloon is able to wake up. Won't be able to wake up on this turn though, because of the Sing landing on the switch in. But it's interesting seeing the players go for those very inaccurate sleep moves, but you can see how useful they can be when they do end up connecting. The Porygon Z's Dynamax was just completely wasted, and then the Indeedee wasn't able to fire off an Expanding Force into that Rapid Strike Urshifu, which would have done a lot of damage. Even with that Friend Guard protecting it, it's not the most specially bulky of Pokemon. Dracovish is going to be coming back in, so still going to be definitely put a threat by another Sing that could come out from the Clefairy. And it's not threatening too much damage with the Fisher's Rend into the Urshifu, as it is going to be resisted and protected by that Friend Guard. And then the Clefairy could, again, go for that redirection to make sure that the Fisher's Rend isn't getting that double power boost. And the Drifloon isn't going to be able to do anything this turn, and could be just completely open to another Surge of Strikes that could come out from the Urshifu.
Yeah, this Urshifu could do a lot, and I said when it came in, it needs to deal that damage, and it's doing a good job of it, right? Surging Strikes is pretty hard to handle. Landing, hit after hit and getting knockout after knockout is exactly what Flavio is going to need in this game. That said, we're in our last turn of the Trick Room as well, so we've got to be kind of mindful of that. And then at this, at the end of this turn, things definitely change around a little bit. So, starting out this turn, the Clefairy Helping Hand doesn't want to try and Sing anymore. It's done with that nonsense. Helping its Urshifu deal as much damage as possible. Fisher's Rend will land into Clefairy, will pick up the knockout, so not able to keep safe. And Clefairy doing what it can, right, before the Urshifu gets a chance to move. Drifloon remains asleep, and Urshifu's Surging Strikes heading over to Addy's Drifloon. There it is. The confirmation that Drifloon is going to get dealt with here. Second hit, easy to do the numbers after that. I'm not a mathematician, but I can visualize it pretty well. And Drifloon is knocked out by the Urshifu Surging Strike. So the Trick Room ends. The weirdness disappears from the battlefield a lot from turn 1, kind of coming to an end right now. But, we're down to the last 2 Pokemon for both trainers. And this is going to be really decisive, I think.
Well, it didn't even seem like Flavio needed that Porygon Z. Just 2 Surging Strikes have picked up 2 knockouts here. And so the Whimsicott coming back onto the field, it doesn't have to fear any Trick Rooms coming out from the Indeedee. It could just be going for that Tailwind once again, as the Trick Room has finished here, and the Urshifu should be outspeeding both the Togekiss and the Dracovish if it is in that Tailwind environment. And the Togekiss is going to be threatening down the Urshifu now with a Dazzling Gleam, or even an Air Slash as well, that would be super effective against it. And the Fisher's Rends won't be double power anymore, because the Whimsicott and the Urshifu will be able to move first, because the Trick Room is now over. And both of the Whimsicott and the Urshifu are going to be resisting the Fisher's Rend as well. So it's quite a nice position for Flavio, even though he wasn't able to make use of any turns of his Dynamax. But then there is still the Dynamax available for Addy's side of the field. Togekiss is looking like a prime candidate here, as it's able to fire off super effective moves into both the Whimsicott and the Urshifu if it does have access to that Airstream. And we are going to be seeing that Dynamax most likely come out from that Togekiss.
Yeah, Togekiss had saved Dynamax, and this is now the Togekiss show, right? It needs to do everything, and being able to Dynamax means you're able to try and fire back as best you can. So Togekiss getting its health pool nice and big there, definitely harder to deal with than some of the other options that are available to you there. Urshifu, not so keen on how things are looking this turn, will protect itself with the Detect. Whimsicott fires out a Dazzling Gleam, good damage down on the Dracovish, a pretty pitiful attempt onto the Togekiss, though, not dealing anywhere near enough there. The Fisher's Rend will land into the Detect of Urshifu, but you can't Detect against the Max Airstream. It does over half with that, and gets a speed boost, so that's going to help out, particularly because we didn't see a Tailwind from the Whimsicott that turn.
So that means we'll have to see a Tailwind come out from the Whimsicott this turn if the Urshifu wants to be outspeeding both the Dracovish and the Togekiss. And then the Urshifu would probably be able to pick up a knockout on the Dracovish at this point with a close combat, but then the Togekiss is still going to be threatening a huge amount of damage to the Urshifu. Whimsicott only has Dazzling Gleam, the weaker version that it could have had access to Moonblast as well, is really not going to be doing too much damage to the Togekiss. So the Togekiss is saving its Dynamax right until the end. Looks like it's going to be able to get rid of both the Urshifu and the Whimsicott quite easily here, because it's got such high defenses with its boosted HP as well. Urshifu's probably not going to be able to break through this Togekiss, even if it gets the Tailwind set up for it to be able to take care of the Dracovish as well. It's still probably not going to be able to break through this Togekiss.
Whimsicott commits to it, knows it needs a speed boost, sets up Tailwind for the Urshifu. Urshifu will Surging Strikes, but look at that damage. It's just not enough into this Togekiss. I mean, even with the amount it can do, it just looks underwhelming, Jamie. It just doesn't impress me, to be honest. There's the third hit. There's Togekiss still looking very healthy. Dracovich's Vicious Rend will land. Decent little bit of damage. Just going to help out dealing with that Whimsicott later. Make it so easy to handle. But Max Airstream into Urshifu is a confirmed knockout. We saw how much they through Protect. There's no way it can get through it when it's not protecting itself. Critical hit certainly helping out there. And now, as you mentioned, the low damage Dazzling Gleam, probably not enough to deal with this Togekiss in its final turn of Dynamax.
Yeah, definitely not. It will be able to take out the Dracovish with the Dazzling Gleam, but the Togekiss will easily be able to pick up the knockout on the Whimsicott with one more Airstream here. So very good preserving the Dynamax until the end, and actually being able to make use of it as well. Maybe if Flavio was able to make use of the max turns of his Porygon Z, things could have gone a little bit differently, but you can see there just how important the Dynamax can be.
Yeah, it was the tale of two Dynamaxes. It was a case where, hey, you know, mine did huge damage and took knockouts, and yours went to sleep and got knocked out on its third turn. So a really well-played set by Addy there. I think he maneuvered the board well. He even kind of dealt with a double sleep very, very well and didn't let that throw him off guard at all. So a lot going on in that game. What does Flavio have to change to try and stay in this one?
He does have that Clefairy that could redirect a Hypnosis coming out from the Drifblim. That would definitely allow the Porygon Z to be able to make use of those max turns. But going for the Tailwinds as your opponent sets Trick Room is never beneficial for you. And then the Drifblim still outspeeding, even though the Whimsicott set the Tailwind with that Prankster. The Drifblim still outsped that Porygon Z, when the Porygon Z could have had the potential to outspeed the Drifblim as well, and be able to fire off a max move into the Indeedee before it got put to sleep. So maybe Flavio needs to fall back on his Clefairy instead of the Whimsicott. But then if he doesn't bring the Whimsicott, the Drifblim, if it's led again, can just go for its Tailwind of its own. You don't need to worry about setting a Trick Room against an opposing Whimsicott Tailwind, and you'll have free reign in that regards. And that would most likely put the Indeedee faster than the Porygon Z as well, and be able to fire off some big expanding forces. So it does look quite awkward for Flavio. He does have access to that Colossal, but then you need to be going with your Urshifu to get that steam engine going. And the Drifblim still could be putting the Pokemon on Addy's side faster than that Colossal, and still able to take care of it, even in that when it's got that steam engine boost.
Certainly some tough decisions for Flavio in this one. I think you've got to make some adjustments, but what adjustment do you make? It is so difficult. I think there was a lot of good kind of things working together on Addy's team that he does need to find an answer to, and he needs to find an answer quickly. I mean, he's already a game down in the set. You know, if he loses this one, then Sweden retake the lead, as we've seen a couple of times over the course of this match. So this one's been a longer team preview, I think, from Addy. He's definitely taken his time over it, but he does end up with the same four that he bought in the exact same order that he bought last time as well. So could be interesting to see if something like a Hypnosis misses or a Sing misses. Both trainers were very lucky, I say, to hit that. I mean, obviously the odds are in their favor, but we all know when you use them, you don't always hit them. No,
but the Hypnosis was able to land on a Dynamax Pokemon, and the Sing was landing on two Pokemon that didn't Dynamax. Just the one Hypnosis ended up being a lot more beneficial than the two Sing hits as well. But the Whimsicott is still going to be led for Flavio's side to go against that Indeedee and Drifblim. It's going to be with the Urshifu this time, but now you've got to play some Tailwind Trick Room mind games.
And that's something that Addy has complete control of, right? He has the Trick Room and he has the Tailwind available on his side. I mean, he has the Unburden as well, which is going to help out a little bit. The special defense boost, not so grand, but hey, it's something, right? Maybe for a little bit later down the line. That said, I mean, it's certainly going to be harder to set up Trick Room with the Surging Strikes threat there. So maybe playing a little more aggressive is probably in Addy's best favor here.
Yeah, one of the few Pokemon that can just KO a Pokemon that's holding a Focus Sash with those Surging Strikes. And we did already see that it was a KO on that Indeedee with the 3 hits. So it would stop any Trick Rooms coming out from the Indeedees, and you would end up having to match the Tailwind with the Drifblim. But then the Urshifu gets free reign this turn to just click its Surging Strikes, really. You can't even protect from it because of its Unseen Fist. And the Indeedee is going to be fearing that Surging Strikes coming out, but Dracovish seems like a pretty good switch into that Surging Strikes.
Yeah, Dracovish coming in to take a potential Surging Strikes is going to be a great switch, as we see that the interesting one, there's going to be the tailwind from Whimsicott. Here are the Surging Strikes that we talked about a little bit earlier on as well. Even with the critical hits that it does guarantee, this damage is, how do we put this politely, Jamie? Poor on the Dracovish, not threatening, and Driftwind will match the Tailwind. So the Tailwinds are set up now. Both teams are able to kind of take advantage of that. And this turn is probably where Addy wants to try and swing things very quickly in his favor.
The Drifblim will be the fastest Pokemon on the field again because of that Unburden. And we do know that it has access to the Hypnosis. That may be what the Drifblim wants to be going for. If it has a flying move to be able to hit both the Whimsicott and the Urshifu, that would be able to do some very good damage as well. But Dracovish is going to be fearing that Whimsicott, going for a Fairy move here. Going to be switching straight back into that Indeedee.
Very wise from him there. I think playing this mind game is so smart. And Urshifu takes the acrobatics pretty well. You know, not getting knocked out is better than you could expect. And as you mentioned, the Fairy move, Dazzling Gleam, is going to be taken quite comfortably here. But the follow-up Surging Strikes will head towards a Drifblim. Wasn't going to throw it where the Dracovish was. And this Drifblim could be a close one. It is enough. I'm not a speed mathematician, as I mentioned before, but I tried my best, and Drifblim easily failed there. That said, you know, he's kind of in a solid position. Like, Drifblim did huge damage with acrobatics, which is exactly what he needed it to do.
It's broken any Focus Sash that could have been on that Urshifu as well, and it's definitely going to be threatened down by the Expanding Force that could come out from the Indeedee, that is now protected by a Togekiss that can just go for a Follow Me to redirect any attacks that could come out into the Indeedee. It won't be able to redirect any Dazzling Gleams coming out from the Whimsicott, but the Indeedee should be able to survive that and be able to respond with that Expanding Force. And we'll have to see if the Togekiss is going to be going for that Dynamax again. We've seen the Indeedee and the Dracovish as the other Pokemon that Addy did bring to this match, so Togekiss is going to be the most likely Pokemon to be going for that Dynamax, as we did see it be so effective against that Whimsicott and Urshifu at the end of the game one, and we'll have to see if it's going to be effective here in the middle of this game too. It does look like that he is going for that Dynamax once again on the Togekiss.
Yep, and that's something he's going to need to do to try and get, like, the edge in this speed match, right? They've been kind of back and forth with Tailwinds and Unburdens and such, and getting the edge, I think, is going to be key to a win condition. If you get it, you win. If you don't, you may lose. So, Togekiss Dynamaxing, really, really good to see that. Something that won in game one. It's going to be a smart way around it. Whimsicott's Dazzling Gleam will land on the Dracovish, which just came in, by the way, for the Indeedee. But doesn't get a knockout, which is always a good sign. And Surging Strikes heading towards that Dracovish. We saw it before. We're going to see it again. Pretty pitiful amount of damage, and Dracovish is going to be in a good position to at least get one attack off, especially after this follow-up move. We saw it get locked in from the Togekiss. Max Airstream will get a speed boost to the Dracovish on its way in, and this Whimsicott is going to be absolutely felled. No Focus Sash on that side, I don't believe. So yeah, Whimsicott taken out. Means there's no way to kind of match the Tailwind, and now the key speed boost becomes that Max Airstream boost.
That Max Airstream is going to be very crucial here. The Togekiss should be outspeeding the Urshifu on Flavio's side of the field as well, and the Dracovish should be outspeeding as well, and that should give the Fishious Rend its double power boost that increases the damage output so much. So the really, really crucial Airstream, as the Tailwinds were already matched, and both of the Tailwind setters are now off the field, so the Airstream is going to be the crucial speed control going into these future turns. There is the Porygon Z that could come in and go for those max strikes, which would be able to counter those max Airstreams, but the Togekiss was able to get the Airstream off first, which means that the speed advantage is going to be in Addy's favor when he's got that Togekiss in its Dynamax form now. So quite an awkward position for him. He is going to bring in that Clefairy, which is going to be threatening the redirection again to maybe keep that Urshifu safe, and also threaten down those Sings that we saw it go for in that game one as well. If a Sing lands on that Togekiss and maybe puts it to sleep with that shaky accuracy, that could help out with the speed increases that can come out from the Airstream. Maybe saving that Porygon Z in the back to be able to counter with those max strikes. If the Clefairy is able to put the Togekiss to sleep. But then at the same time, if you go for that Sing, you leave the Urshifu completely open to an Airstream. And then, if you're going for the Sing as well, then the Fishious Rend that would go into the Clefairy would be double power. And we saw how much damage was coming out from that Dracovish, so that's probably why the Clefairy is going for that Follow Me. Keep the Urshifu safe, and keep that Fishious Rend at neutral power.
Yep, it had to be done, I think. You can't let Dracovish just take the knockout that easily. Clefairy would walk very, very low by that, a really good amount of damage. He is going to keep surging strikes into the Dracovish, but this time it's going to be enough. He's able to do enough damage to tidy that up, but it already landed its Vicious Rep. So it probably feels pretty good about its turn there, right? It's taken a bunch of surging strikes and it got exactly what it wanted. The Max Airstream will be heading towards the Clefairy, will be picking up a knockout, forcing both trainers to be down to their last 2 Pokemon as we close out this game. But there's no more redirection to be played with. The Tailwinds peter out, there's no Tailwind setters left. And we're coming back to the old Indeedee that we saw in turn number 1. So certainly needs to be careful. The Max Airstream booster are only in play, don't forget, on the Togekiss. But that Togekiss can comfortably deal with that Urshifu right now.
We saw how much damage it did even through the Detect to the Urshifu in that game 1. It's probably going to be in range of an Airstream again, even if it goes for that Detect. And then that Airstream would allow the Indeedee to outspeed the Porygon Z and fire off a single target Expanding Force as well. And even if the Togekiss just wants to go for the attack into the Porygon Z, Expanding Force would be able to deal with the Urshifu as well, but then that wouldn't cover for the Detect that could come out from the Urshifu. But the Togekiss having 2 speed boosts now, being able to get 1 more as well with the Airstream, the Porygon Z would need to go for 3 Max Strikes to bring it back down, and then that would be all of its turns of Dynamax. But then the Togekiss does have only 1 more turn of Dynamax as well. So it's going to be quite a close end game. The Togekiss getting the speed boosters from the Airstreams is going to give the advantage here to Addy because he's able to fire off those Airstreams once again. Whether that's to take care of the Urshifu even through the Detect, or to boost the speed of the Indeedee so it can take care of the Urshifu with the Expanding Force as well. But now Flavio really has to rely on this Porygon Z.
Yep, the Porygon Z doing exactly what Addy did to him, right, in game number 1, where he saved it for the end and was able to sweep and tidy up the game with it. Urshifu will Detect, doesn't want to give away free damage from that Expanding Force option that you mentioned. So Max Airstream heading towards the Porygon Z. That's going to be a good chunk of damage down on that, and seeing that on a Dynamax, you really don't want your health to go down that quickly. Does get a speed boost on Indeedee, which didn't already have one. That could be really important for the next couple turns, as Expanding Force obviously getting caught by the Detect of Urshifu. Not enough there, but Porygon Z takes a huge chunk from that, and it's already down into the red. That's going to be a big problem. That said, Indeedee will be knocked out in retaliation. This Togekiss isn't able to save it with the speed boost. It does get a knockout with the Max Strike, and Porygon Z loses some of its health to the Life Orb, so the Porygon Z is very, very low. The Togekiss is still pretty healthy, so the Dynamax is obviously over for the Togekiss on this turn, but he's only got 1 Max Strike in play, so still 2 increased stages from the Max Airstream, and interestingly enough, that's actually a really good turn for Togekiss, because now it's got access to spread moves, Jamie.
The Dazzling Gleam is definitely going to be enough on the Urshifu. It's going to be very close if it's enough on that Porygon Z as well. The Life Orb chip may have just put it in range as well. It's going to be very close. But if the Porygon Z is able to survive the Dazzling Gleam that can come out from the Togekiss, it's almost certainly going to be strong enough to respond with a KO of its own with the Max Strike. So it's just going to come down now to whether that Dazzling Gleam is going to be enough on the Porygon Z, because the Urshifu is definitely going to be KO'd.
Well, he locked it in really quickly. He knew it was the time. He knew he's got those speed boosts. Togekiss's Dazzling Gleam lands on both. Urshifu is knocked out, but it looks like Porygon will be just clinging on. Oh no, Porygon's not. My apologies. I saw a pixel. It wasn't there. Porygon Z is knocked out, and that's going to be it. Addy is going to force Sweden back into the lead with a big win over Flavio del Pidio. So really good set. I think both trainers really well putting together their teams and playing them to the best of their ability. But Addy just executing his team so well in both games.
And that's going to give Sweden 2 match points as well. They are now 3-2 against Italy and are 1 win away from being able to win the European Cup. So yeah, this is going to be such an exciting end to this grand finals. Such a great game coming out from both players. But yes, Sweden are 1 win away from winning now.
Yeah, I think Sweden definitely have already, whatever happens, have already redeemed themselves from the group stage match. The fact they're in the lead, they're forcing some really tough games out of Italy. The backs, I guess, are up against the wall. But, you know, they're a team that can do it. It really is anyone's match. I think before we move on, that game, we have to say, was fantastically played by both, even though it was a 2-0. It's probably one of the best 2-0s I've seen in a long time.
We did see a lot of those sleep moves coming out with the Hypnosis as well. Very, very crucial turn 1 Hypnosis, just putting a stop to that Porygon Z completely. And then there were the Sings coming out from the Clefairy as well. But putting a stop to the Dynamax was very crucial for Addy's victory in that game 1. And then in game 2, Flavio did try to respond with a late game Dynamax as well, but at that point, the Togekiss had been getting those Airstream boosts, was able to outspeed the Porygon Z even after the max strikes, and was just in range of that Hustle Gleam.
Yeah, I do think the Life Orb damage probably put it in range. I thought I was so sure I saw a pixel of health left on the Porygon Z, and it wasn't there, and it just wasn't enough for Flavio to be able to pull it back. That said, this match hangs in the balance. There's 2 more, as you mentioned. Sweden have 2 match points, 2 opportunities to punch that victory